Started off with computer engineering, realized I didn't want to be designing microprocessors. I didn't want to be designing computer systems, and then moved into the cybersecurity field from there. Realized, and I can opine on this a little bit more later, that there's a major problem with cybersecurity education or degrees around cybersecurity in the industry. That still persists today, in that cybersecurity tends to focus in on a lot of the more theoretical and mathematical concepts. It's built by academics. It's not built by individuals who are versed in how cybersecurity is actually implemented in the real world. So I eventually realized, hey, this high-level math's not for me, and then I went straight into computer science, but realized that, well, this hacking stuff's pretty cool, so we're going to go ahead and focus in on that. So I focused a lot of my courses around things that I knew would be useful in an enterprise computing environment: databases, web application development in general, and kind of built my skill set from there. And then I lucked into the job that I currently have.
Okay. Yeah. The looking into it, I mean, I think it feels like these days there's significantly more luck required in doing it, because, I mean, you said you fresh out of college into the job that you're in now, and that's something that is tough. Yeah, it's tough these days because everybody wants the finished article. That, it's entry-level positions with 3 to 5 years worth of experience. Like, hello, dickhead, that's not entry level.
That's exactly right. And especially in something like cybersecurity, which always was traditionally a specialist role. It was always something that you don't go entry level into cybersecurity. You go entry level into your help desk or your field support services, that kind of thing, and you build your way up into a security role. That is, I don't think it's the case as much anymore, but it is definitely still something where cybersecurity is still just kind of like this piece that's tacked onto generalized IT, which is a good thing insofar as it provides a pretty good ramp up and a pretty good base of knowledge for the individuals trying to get into it. But it's a bad thing because it's very unattainable, because you have to do something that you don't like for 3 to 5 years while you gather some experience in your own time to then get into a cybersecurity career. So there's not a really good smooth ramp into the industry right now.
Yeah, it's a weird one because, in order to secure the stuff, you have to know how at least some of the stuff works.
Yeah, and that's again, I was going to get into this, but like the gripes that I have with the education system around cybersecurity is exactly that. It's when I was taking my coursework in cybersecurity, when I was doing the cybersecurity degree, mind you, again, this was 15 years ago, so things may have changed. I'm on the board for my old school for the computer science and cybersecurity program. I haven't changed all that much.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of insider knowledge there, but when it comes down to it, back then, cybersecurity was pretty much computer science with some specialty courses. So you were still doing the computer science capstone courses. You were still doing all your programming courses. They basically just told you specifically which electives to take. And those electives, in a lot of cases, would not prepare you at all for work in an enterprise cybersecurity environment. Academia, yeah, absolutely. Your discrete mathematics for cybersecurity, understanding exactly how cryptography works and why it works and the math behind it, that's absolutely great if you're looking to get into academic cybersecurity. It's completely fucking useless if you're looking to get into the industry. Yeah. Nobody has asked me about elliptic curve cryptography and how it works from a mathematical perspective in the last 15 years, which is good because I failed that course anyway. So.
But how would that stack up? I mean, say for instance, you really wanted to push yourself into, say, the cyber tools development.
Sure.
Outside of the academia, that's really the in-industry bit where that's kind of useful. But in terms of defending,
yes. However,
you don't need to know the nuts and bolts.
The problem you're going to run into with that is a niche within a niche. So when it comes down to it, you building out new cryptographic algorithms, yeah, there's a lot of open source stuff that happens, and most of the good work happens on an open source side. So there is the possibility of joining open source projects, but you're not going to get paid for that. So generally speaking, if you're looking for a career in it, you're going to be working for one of the larger tech development teams and firms. Think your NVIDIAs, your Cisco's, your Microsofts, your Apples, et cetera, building out some of their in-house bespoke cryptographic or encryption solutions. There's not many people that are doing that. There's not many open positions there. So getting there kind of compounds the problem we were talking about before, where there is no entry level into that. Your entry level is very much a case of, most of the people that are working on that are, have multiple PhDs in mathematics, as an example. They're not like somebody they just hired straight out of college. So it's a leap.
High barriers to entry, and you're really waiting
very
for
high
the
barriers
to move out. I think sports journalism had that same sort of problem for like the longest time, and that's why something like The Athletic came about. I mean, they eventually got bought by the New York Times, but they basically were saying like there is so many people who just refuse to retire. We cannot get into it, and they hold all the cards.
Yep, absolutely, and that's why when it comes down to it, like when I'm hiring somebody new, because I've done a lot of hiring, I look at the whole person as opposed to just what degree they have. I don't care if you have a cybersecurity degree. I've hired people that haven't even gone to college. My hierarchy tends to go, what kind of experience do you have? I'd rather have somebody who has spent the last couple years building out a home lab and performing penetration tests on their own and kind of building out their own, because that means they're passionate about the actual tool set. They know what they're doing. Yeah, they don't have the formal training of a degree, and that comes with its own problems. Don't get me wrong. There is, there could be communication related issues. There could be issues around writing out reports, as an example. There is some, knowledge that's necessary on the enterprise level. But if we're talking just somebody who's a pure pen tester or even a pure incident responder, somebody who's been doing this stuff on their own is very attractive, and it's very much so something. And this is where the industry hasn't necessarily caught up yet. Everybody's still looking for, all right, where's your CISSP? Where's your degree in computer science or cybersecurity? Where's your OSCP or whatever it happens to be? They're important. Certificates are important. They do provide some qualifications or a base level understanding of certain technology and a certain level of not experience, but a certain base level of knowledge is really what it goes down to. But there's a lot of certificate mills out there. I know the what's it called? The Security Plus has had a lot of problems with this, of people just getting. Listen, universities have that problem too, with people just getting rubber stamped degrees. Yep. So I'd rather see and hear somebody who is genuinely passionate about a particular topic talk through how they built their home lab, rather than hearing about somebody's degree.
So that's what I wanted to kind of follow up on, Andy, in terms of then how it's the seeing and the hearing, right? Because there's mentees I have, and this is one of those. For me trying to break in, one of the things that folks used to hit me with, that now I understand it, right? Being on the other side of the hiring table, sometimes I support you guys. Some, I've been, for other roles. It's, where'd you get your news, right? Like, kind of tell me. So is it similar where, like, the walkthrough of that environment of the home lab, or is there like a format that you'd want to be able to see it? Do they have to have links on their resume maybe to kind of show you here's?
Yeah, those are all helpful. I mean, send me to a GitHub page to show that you've done some code and some work around that. That's fine. Give me an idea as to what you do in that lab. I mean, talk me through some of the coolest boxes that you've popped. Talk me through some of the coolest stuff that you've done, and that gives me two things. That gives me some assurances that you know what you're talking about, because if you can explain it to me, that means you know what you're talking about.
Yep.
And it also gives me a understanding of how you are with communicating certain topics. And that communication and it gives you an understanding into your thought process behind how you would go about, doing a scan for potential vulnerabilities, or how would you go about doing an analysis of a box to see if there's any kind of attacker activity. The thought process there is super important.
Absolutely makes sense. And that's one of those things that I think are right, because it's almost like when the internet decides to get bored, right? Or infosec, whatever, infosec Twitter, infosec LinkedIn, whatever. It's certs or degrees, degrees, and it's just wait a second, like XP, I think rules them all. So I'm glad to know I'm not off.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of like kind of on that topic, just kind of moving around that. So, cybersecurity, at least in the last little bit, has been a lot of buzzwords. IT in general tends to be buzzwords. You got, 15 years ago, you had, the move to, SaaS hosted solution. SaaS was the big buzzword. Now it's cloud. Now it's machine learning. Now it's AI. There's always going to be some level of buzzwords, but cybersecurity doubly so always tends to be, everybody's looking for that silver bullet because nobody wants to invest in cybersecurity. But when it comes down to it, nobody wants to be the subject of an attack. So there's a lot of stuff out there that is solutions in search of problems, so to speak. I'm not gonna name any specific vendors or name any specific technologies that I think is the case here. But like the key with cyber is 99.9% of the time you're dealing with people. At its core, the majority of problems in cyber comes from some person causing an issue at its very core. Even if you're dealing with a zero-day vulnerability, something that can't be patched, nobody is aware of, somebody coded that vulnerability. So there's a gap of knowledge of some kind in secure coding, or a gap of knowledge in selection when it comes to an open source code base to use, or there's some level of there's some human interaction. In the end, it always comes down to a human. And technology can never be the silver bullet to replace that. No matter how much AI or ML or cloud you put in front of it, it's never going to fix it.
3 buzzwords right in a row. Like you're
exactly.
just flexing on people.
My favorite one I've seen recently has been the very last scene from Wolf of Wall Street is to sell me this pen, and the guy just goes, "It's got AI."
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're at, and it's ridiculous.
It was even right before AI as well. There was like, I remember seeing that there's the meme of the girl who's got like a trumpet, like right, or a tuba right in her face.
Right in your face.
Zero trust.
Yep. That's exactly right. Yeah. It's everybody thinks that there is some kind of silver bullet to protect them, and I'm not saying everybody. There's it's boards. Let's be honest. It's boards of directors. It's CEOs. It's the people who don't understand the technology that think there is some kind of silver bullet that can solve this. But in reality, the base level technologies that we've got have gotten so good that we've been living in an era where we've seen the evolution of commercial technologies that don't need to exist. So primary example, and this is more for home users than it is for enterprise users. You don't need AV anymore. There's no reason to run Norton, McAfee, Kaspersky. Don't run Kaspersky. Just don't.
Please don't.
Well, we'll get on to that.
I said I wasn't going to call out vendors, but I'll call them out.
That's a safe call out. I think the State Department would back you on that.
Probably, yeah. But from what I'm basically saying is, like, we've seen that evolution of technology to where the base level of a lot of our tech is fairly secure. Obviously you're always going to have 0 days, you're always going to have problems, and as things become more connected, as things become more complicated, those problems will start compounding. But a lot of the stuff that we relied on, like, again, 15 years ago, if you didn't have AV on every single computer you had, you were screwed. There was nothing you can do. And then attackers evolved to the point where they can bypass AV. Sorry, Robin, go on.
No, I was gonna say, and everybody hated that time of year when it was renew your McAfee, because it was like, oh, there's another 70, $80 that,
Exactly.
like,
Yeah,
actually
or
I'm
more.
never really gonna see the payoff from, because it's one of those, it's Futurama. When you've done things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all, because
Right.
it's the preventative nature of it. You only really notice when there's an absence of it, but
Yeah.
you always resented paying that 70, $80 per year for that.
Yeah, and 90% of the time when it comes down to it, safe browsing habits, safe habits when it comes to interacting with technology, that'll save you 90% of the time. Yeah, you're always going to have a drive-by download. You're always going to have zero-day vulnerabilities in applications that could potentially impact you. But for the personal user, when it comes down to it, safe browsing habits, Windows Defender, and just really kind of being suspicious always online. Don't assume that anybody on the internet's your friend, and you'll be safe from 99% of attacks.